Welcome back to Service to School Stories. I'm your host, Sydney Mathis, Director of Student Success here at Service to School. As a former college admissions officer and the spouse of an active duty service member, I'm excited to dig into topics within the higher education landscape as it relates to veterans and transitioning service members. Let's dig in. All right, so I am joined today by two of our VetLink partner institutions. I have Mike Brown here from Villanova and Beau Butts. He is joining us from UChicago. Mike is the director of the Office of Veterans and Military Service Members at Villanova, and Beau is the executive director of Veterans Initiatives, Programs, and Services at UChicago. I've had the absolute joy of getting to know both of you through your work and my time here at Service to School. But to start, thank you so much for joining us as a VetLink partner, continuing to support veterans as they transition out of service and pursue higher education. I have learned a lot about the support and programs that you all have placed on your campuses, which is why we're excited to bring you on to chat today and for our listeners to learn a little bit more about what types of programs and resources are available to them on some of our partner campuses, but also just for some professionals in this space to possibly glean some best practices or some examples of ways that they can better support student veterans on their campuses across the country. So thanks so much to both of you. Mike, I'm going to go ahead and start with you, turn it over to you. Can you tell us, our listeners, a little bit about who you are and how you got into this work at Villanova?
Sure. Thanks, Sydney. And Beau, it's good to meet you. I think opportunities like this are fantastic for prospective students, for other folks in this profession. And I look forward to future conversations that don't include me, because I think picking off best practices and learning from others is what we should always be trying to do, and increasing the best practices for our student veterans across whatever campus they happen to be attending. But my name is Mike Brown. I am an Army veteran. I joined the Army right after high school. I decided to be an infantryman and challenge myself. And it was great. I was in Europe for a few years. I deployed out of Europe, and then I came back to Fort Hood, Texas, and decided at that point I didn't really like Texas very much, that I was going to get out of the Army. And I wanted to use my GI Bill, like so many others have done in the past and will do in the future, and went to a state school in Michigan and loved my time there. But I think what I learned very quickly was when you walk from the community of the military and you're walking away from that, that's really what I missed the most, was not the menial tasks or the waking up and doing PT, but it was the people. And so I try to replicate that as best I can with serving my student veterans here. Is creating a community is something that's really my focus. And again, I really appreciate this opportunity and look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. Beau, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Sydney, and Service to School for having us. And Mike, I couldn't have said it better than you did, so I'll just say ditto to all that. My name is Beau Butts. I work at the University of Chicago, and Army veteran myself as well. Had the great privilege of being stationed at Fort Hood, Texas once upon a time, just like Mike there. Did 10 years in armor and cavalry, and a couple deployments to Iraq and Ethiopia and a few other exciting places. So my work in this space really came about from a combination of things, but partially it was looking at the civil military gap that was kind of growing in the nation, and having conversations centered around that and the ways that that we all of us as veterans, service members, civilians, et cetera, could come together to tackle this growing gap. And one of the areas that seemed most effective was actually through higher education, and providing unique opportunities throughout the higher education, more meaningful opportunities throughout higher education, so that students, service members and veterans in particular, who are interested in pursuing unique career opportunities, graduate school opportunities, what have you, really did have those options, and were set up for success for those. So as I was getting out of the military, I was thinking about those things actively, and the University of Chicago was a place that I had some connection to from my mentor previously, and it was just a space where we saw this kind of opportunity could occur. So very excited to be here and discuss all of this with you all.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I think about, what does it look like when we're supporting students through their journey towards higher education, right? I think the obvious that comes to mind, especially in our work here at Service to School, is helping them complete their applications. But there's so much more than just filling out the application, writing the essay, and clicking submit. A lot of what we encourage our applicants to do is to get a great understanding of the schools that they're applying to and why those schools would be a good fit for them. And I think when we talk about finding a fit, it's where you're going to feel most supported, right? And that support is academic support, financial support, socio-emotional support. And I think both of your institutions do that really well, taking a picture and looking at the whole student veteran and what types of support mechanisms can we put in place to make sure that our students are supported. So Beau, I want to start with you all. You all recently started the veteran specific application for the college admissions process to UChicago. Can you talk to us a little bit about starting that process? And then Mike, I want to bounce to you about a little bit after that, talking about once they're on campus, that support. So Beau, I'm going to kick it to you and talk to you a little bit about that application.
Yeah.
When you first started at UChicago, was the veteran application there already?
No, it wasn't. So when I first started at the university, there were actually 0 undergraduate veterans, I'm afraid to say. And so after the first admission cycle, we had some conversations amongst us as administrators and senior staff at the university to kind of highlight some issues that typically exist surrounding the application process for non-traditional students, but specifically in this case, service members and veterans. And we wanted to tackle the issue essentially, or a combination of issues and concerns. Chief among them were like the timelines. Oftentimes service members and veterans are pushed into a transfer timeline that occurs at the very tail end of the year around, April, May, August, that time frame there, July, et cetera, with a very short turnaround for them to know where they're going to go. Essentially, they may have to move somewhere or make a decision about where they're going to move, the next steps in their life, in a matter of a couple months, in time for August or September. And this is, of course, a massive stressor. And it's added to the fact that many service members and veterans have families that they are going to be moving to these schools with as well, and pets and furniture and just the life, not to mention exiting the military and the transition process there too. So that was one among many different things that we highlighted that didn't really make sense amongst about the admission process as it pertained to service members and veterans. Another was that there may have been a bit of a reliance perhaps on high school grade work and things of that nature, or there were some things asked in the application that didn't necessarily contextualize the veteran experience and the service member experience. The example would be kind of having letters of recommendation come from high school teachers or counselors or things like that, which in many cases, folks hadn't been in contact with in quite some time. So we created the veteran application process a couple of years ago now, and we've seen it that it's been tremendously successful, not only in bringing fantastic service members and veterans to the University of Chicago, but also in offering opportunities and kind of starting the conversation with many more about whether or not UChicago is a place that they see themselves, or also just having conversations about other institutions as well and their goals in higher education. So we look at it more like establishing a relationship and then providing a lot of resources and support throughout the application process. And we've also seen that this has resulted in tremendous numbers of folks who are excited to engage and just have the conversation about what places like UChicago and our peers and many other great institutions could offer them in terms of resources and opportunities, but also giving them a little bit of guidance along the way too of what it means to be a competitive applicant and the different things that they could do so that they are more competitive for the application cycle. We've targeted all those different issues that create anxiety surrounding applications such as the timeline. We've got a rolling application process, and we have a more standard timeline, et cetera, that might fit with different folks. And we also try to address some of the specific elements of their background, like by providing the letters of recommendation could be written by other service members that they worked with, or leadership within their military, hierarchy, et cetera. It could also come from educators, professors, et cetera, that they may have gone to community college or online school with. So we essentially opened up a lot more opportunity to tackle the application in a few more ways, so that it's not quite as strict, but it gets to the same process. They fill out the same application as every other student to the university. We feel that's very important as well, though, because we want our students to know when they're here that they actually belong here. So the application remains fairly the same, but the process that surrounds it is far more nuanced and provides a lot more support.
Yeah. And I think hitting on your point there is that the student feels like they are welcome there and belong there, right? And it all comes back to building those relationships and the communication. Just talking to someone the other day, they're like, yeah, I just send the student veterans a Zoom link so then we can have this conversation. And it's, just investing in the process and bringing it back to a more of a humanistic process, right? So then they do feel valued and supported throughout the process. And Mike, that's one thing too that I want to hear from you all at Villanova. So I know you have a very robust veteran center on your campus, as far as the opportunities that you host in there and just the support and the community that you've built in that space. Can you talk to us a little bit about the veteran community on Villanova's campus and how you've kind of taken some of those same facets of, how UChicago created their veteran specific application and how you all have implemented that into your student veteran center on campus?
Sure. Similar to Beau, when I got here in 2018, there wasn't a me before me. So I feel like sometimes I'm working in a startup. But we had basically a half a student veteran, someone who was part-time walking around as an undergrad on campus. And now we have 42 student veterans walking around as undergrads and over 171 when you count our grad and law, et cetera. So our population is growing. And I think part of my approach to how we're supporting student veterans is certainly not just recruiting, or certainly not just creating a center or a space, because anyone can build a rectangle, anyone can go out and recruit student veterans. Those things are, in my opinion, the easy parts. If all we're doing is recruiting and building veteran centers around the world, then we're missing out on huge opportunities to create those senses of belonging. And so for me, a veteran center is a living, breathing organism, frankly. Students are in here, they're for hours or maybe just 5 or 10 minutes grabbing a cup of coffee. But the conversations that I see, the people that come in here, an example of some of the things that we do is we have monthly times when support services from around campus actually come to the Veteran Center. And what we've seen from that is student veterans are more likely then to go use them on their time. So if someone from the Career Center is here for a couple hours every other Tuesday, those student veterans establish relationships and say, oh yeah, Meredith is coming next week, but I need something now. I can go talk to Meredith, at my own time. So what it does is just sort of break down some of those anxiety or trust issues that student veterans may have with the transition process. And so someone from the Career Center is here once a month, someone from the Tutoring Center is here in the Veteran Center, and it just provides some of those easier mechanisms for our student veterans to get introduced to resources that are on campus. And then some of the other things that we do is we bring people from the community to our Veteran Center as well. So we bring a VSO here, so someone who can help with claims. Maybe they have a disability or want to start that process, or maybe they want to go from 33 to chapter 31 and become use a different benefit for their educational goals. And then the last thing is we bring in some alumni from different sectors of society. So an example, this year we have someone coming in from Johnson & Johnson, someone coming in from EY, just to talk to our student veterans to introduce different sectors of society that they may want to work in or may want to learn more about. And a good example of that is someone who maybe want to be in studying computer science, and they look at EY as like, I can't work. That's just a finance place. Well, most businesses need computer scientists, whether that's in the IT world or helping with whatever it may be. So that's one of the big reasons why is we sometimes people pigeonhole themselves with, I want to be X, but they don't know that being X, you can do that almost anywhere and across various sectors. And so that's one of the big reasons we like to bring in different guests and people into our vet center. Again, anyone can build a rectangle. I believe that that rectangle should be a living, breathing organism that's a part and parcel to the campus community. So faculty, staff, students are here all the time, talking to our students. And our students are, again, that sense of belonging that Beau talked about is really near and dear to my heart. I want them to come to the Veteran Center, but really I want them to use it as a launching pad to become a Villanova Wildcat, not just to be a veteran on Villanova's campus.
Yeah. And that sense of community and belonging, right? It's kind of, how does that school make you feel, right? Do you feel like you can go there and find your people, like you can go there and be successful? And then, how is that going to launch you throughout your 4 years and beyond? Because it's not just setting them up for success, on your campus. You want them to go out into the world and to job positions and to thrive. And I think by, establishing those communities and those support systems, it just gives them the confidence to be able to do that. I was overhearing on I think it was a blog post or someone, this parent was trying to get in touch with a disability and support services office for one of her kids' colleges, and she just couldn't get a response. And my first thought was, if that's how you're feeling approaching this institution before you've even enrolled there, do you feel comfortable that once you're there, once you're on their campus, that you're going to feel just as supported? And I think by putting things in place like the, veteran application, Beau, and being intentional with your student center, Mike, that just, when they're having these conversations with you, they know that they're walking into a space where they feel valued throughout the process. They feel valued once they're on your campuses, which is, starting that kind of 360 through the application process. Now thinking about, can you find your people? But I want to come back to you, Beau. Talk to us a little bit about the housing and what it's like to be a student living on UChicago's campuses and the resources that you all have put in place there.
Happy to. So I think that same spirit that occurs throughout the veterans application process and the initial touching points with UChicago in terms of creating a relationship that maintains throughout the entire time that someone is here. Part of it is because we essentially have a bit of a one-stop shop and wear the same hats or wear multiple hats. So while I'm an admissions officer, I'm also the academic advisor for all of our veteran scholars, and I'm also the coordinate the housing for them and the pre-orientation programming and some of the career programming and a whole host of other things. It's fairly centralized, which is unique, but what makes it special. And we've seen that grow now from 0 when I started to this fall, we'll have 80. So just within the undergraduate community alone. And then throughout the greater graduate community, there's another 100 plus veterans there, and then others as part of the military affiliated communities. And then also we have ROTC as well. So, but one important component to feeling like you're part of the campus has to do with where you live. A lot of students will elect when they're going off of school, a lot of student veterans, that is to say, will elect to become kind of a commuter student, if you will. And that traditionally doesn't set anyone up for success. Because if you think about it, you might live pretty far away from campus, and you may feel that you have to do that based on the cost of living closer to campus, or it might have to do with accommodations for your families and pets and all these other things, which of course makes sense. But what you miss out on from being nearer to campus is being part of that campus community and that campus culture, but also the easy access of being able to go and study at the library in the middle of the night, or join organizations, take advantage of professional programming, et cetera. So that residential experience is pretty important to us. So we have a requirement that all of our students have to have a residential experience. And for our traditional students, that is a minimum of 2 years in the residence halls. But for our student veterans, it's a little unique. We focus all of our programming on being as impactful and meaningful as possible, but also being fairly common sense, I think, and finding the best opportunities available. So rather than having our student veterans live in the residence halls, which would be kind of like the barracks version 2.0 in terms of an experience, we have secured a independent apartment building just on the north end of campus. And there are studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom options there. It's pet friendly, it's family friendly. There's a park across the street. There's a concierge and doorman downstairs. There's parking. There's a Target on the first floor and a sushi place on the first floor and a whole host of restaurants there on that same street, and easy access to any of the classes and a shuttle bus that can take folks around, as well as, walking, biking, etc. So a lot that goes on just in terms of easy access. But what it really comes down to is it ensures a couple of things. The first is that these students are part of our student community, and that their families are part of the community as well, which is important to us. Furthermore, it helps to remove some of the anxieties and stressors that occur when you're moving to a new place and transitioning out of the military, where you're often asking yourself, okay, where am I going to live? I just found out I'm going to the school and I'm trying to plan ahead. And maybe you have a family, maybe you just have pets, maybe you have a combination, maybe you have whatever the case may be. But you're starting to stress out a little bit as you're looking to move to a new location. It's compounded often by the fact that you have to usually, when you go to rent an apartment or a home or whatever, you have to show that you bring in 2 to 3 times a month in income what the rent is. That's very hard to do for an enlisted veteran in general, but it's even harder to do as you're looking to transition out and no longer have that paycheck, and you're looking to transition to use of a GI Bill, have your BH, et cetera. But that is not going to be 3 times a month rent, typically, for most places. So we've identified all these different challenges and stressors, and then we've provided resources to tackle each one of them so that it isn't something the student has to worry about or the service member as they're transitioning has to worry about. It's on us to worry about, and we just provide the opportunity. So one of the first things we'll do with an admitted student veteran, for example, is have the conversation about, what type of apartment do you want? Do you want to share a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with another veteran scholar? Do you want a studio, 1-bedroom? Do you need a full 2-bedroom because of kids and all that kind of thing as well? So we'll have conversations surrounding that to identify the right type, and then we'll have conversations about the appropriate move-in time. Are you transitioning out in early summer, and do you need a place to live almost immediately right thereafter, or are you looking to go and travel or go visit family or something before moving to Chicago? So we'll have those kinds of conversations, and then we pay the rent up front, and then we put it on the student's bill, helping to get around some of those issues of concerns about how to prove that you can pay your bill, or even the stress about, do I have the money to pay the bill right when I'm getting out of the military, all those things. So we take care of that. And then when it's on the student's bill, we pay it down with aid, meaning that they get to keep the majority of their BH to use for food and cost of living, et cetera. So we try to tackle as many of those issues as we can so that our students are able to focus on the student experience. They're able to focus on engaging with the rest of the community, not just the veteran community, but the campus community. They're able to focus on classes, internships, research, and other brilliant opportunities that are available as part of our entire, kind of curriculum and programming structure.
Yeah. And that's actually really interesting. When I'm talking to students, they're like, oh yeah, I don't really care too much about the traditional student experience, right? Like, oh, I'm 26. This is my second career, and they don't think about what it's actually going to look like and what opportunities are available to them on a college campus. And I think when you actually peel back some of those layers and you're like, oh, wait, I can still be a part of a campus community, even though I'm an adult learner, or I still can join some student organizations or some clubs and be involved in this college experience, because I think so much of that learning happens outside of the classroom, right? And when you think about college, it's usually like Greek life and football games and the party scene, but it's so much more than that. It's those internships and those leadership opportunities that you can take through student government. And Mike, that actually leads me into, I want to hear a little bit from you. When you and I had the opportunity to chat before, you had talked about some study abroad opportunities and some internships and research that you had previous students engage in. But Mike, I want you to talk to us a little bit about the study abroad events and trips that you take some of your student veterans on.
Sure. I see Amanda's wearing her Cleveland shirt right now, and we just got back from a trip to Cleveland. So I took 15 undergrad student veterans to Cleveland, and one of our alumni is fairly high up in the Cleveland Guardians Major League Baseball organization. So he wanted to host us. And, what I gleaned from that trip is that my philosophy is very much in line with the Cleveland Guardians philosophy. They could have just given us tickets and said, have a nice night at the ball game and we'll talk to you later. But instead, we arrived at the stadium about 5 hours before the game started. We met with the president of baseball operations, the president of business operations, several people within the leadership organization, and then someone from the Cleveland Browns organization as well. All came and chatted with our student veterans about life in the sports world, but also all of them were veterans. They talked about their pathways to that place that they are today. And then we, got a tour of the stadium. We got to meet some former ball players. We had a really impactful, meaningful day outside of just a baseball game which was fine, which is great. We got to sit in a suite, but that was for us. I like to introduce our students to different people, places, and things, because you never know what you don't know. So if you want to be in sports management or not, who cares as far as I'm concerned, because you're going to meet people that are going to add to your personal and professional network that I think are huge value adds. And some of the feedback, I usually do surveys after these trips, and some of the feedback we got was I had never done anything around networking before in my life. I was very nervous and scared about it. I didn't know what to expect. And now I can't wait to become a Villanova student. So that's really sort of the mindset that I try to get, and it appeared to be successful. So we try to do these little trips, regional based trips that are sort of meaningful, that we're doing it together. So we're building community, we're having fun together, but we're also making sure that we're not just there for pure fun. We're really there to walk away with added tools to our toolbox. And we'll keep doing that. Next year, we hope to do something in Boston, and it won't be baseball themed. It'll be more career focused themed, but we use alumni who are in interesting positions within different organizations, and introduce our students not only to them, but also to their network. So it's just opening up their broader network in their professional life. And, we'll hopefully provide opportunities for more meaningful conversations down the road. And then long-term, I hope to take some of my student veterans on more global trips. I have a plan to take them to Normandy and do a trip where we take 10 alumni and 10 student veterans together, and we go do some look at, global, interesting places, and, do it for a week where we are introducing our students to alumni for relationship building, but also learning about Villanovans who've served and lost their lives in wars across the globe, so we can learn more about the history of Villanova. So again, trying to provide impactful opportunities for our student veterans is something I'm supremely focused on, because I care about outcomes. I want them to be successful, obviously in the classroom, but I want them to be successful alumni, and so that eventually they can go on these trips or introduce our student veterans down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. The thread that I keep seeing through both of your answers is just being intentional, right? The programs that you've put in place, and looking at where some of the barriers are through support programs, and being intentional about ways that you can circumvent those barriers, and essentially, make sure that your students are in the best place that they can be to be successful in their studies. So, I think looking forward for professionals in the field, or for students that are looking for campuses where they know that they will thrive, what are some things they are doing to be intentional about either career services, or what types of, academic advising do they have? So then those outcomes are, worth their either 4 years if they're starting as a first year student or if they're transferring in. Can either of you talk to our listeners a little bit about student research or internships on your campuses?
Yeah, I can start off the conversation on that. Well, I think that the first thing that is important when talking about internships and research at any university, especially as it pertains to student veterans and service members, is that it is very important to remove any of the barriers that would prevent a student veteran from participating in an internship or research opportunity. Oftentimes at most universities, what you see student veterans doing is taking summer classes because they become reliant on the BAH that's connected with the GI Bill. So they front load their course requirements and things. In some cases, they're actually taking classes that'll serve as electives. They're not really going to satisfy any particular degree requirements. They just are reliant on that BAH. Other times they feel to be in a bit of a hurry to get to the job market. And so they're not even necessarily putting the value of internships and research, kind of front and center. So what we've done is we started with that and removed the different barriers that would prevent someone from participating in these experiences by providing summer stipend for the first year, by providing internship grants and research grants that help to cover the cost or entirely cover the cost of what would be an underpaid or maybe even unpaid internship or research. And these break that reliance on the BAH and things of that nature. These break the reliance on other opportunities that people might think of as just I need a summer job to get money, but it's not necessarily going to help you with some of your future career goals. Like working at Starbucks is a fantastic thing to do, as is a number of other jobs and occupations, and the pay might be quite good, but at the same time, that's not really honing any particular skills or giving them experiences that help to confirm or deny their interest in banking or finance or any number of other things too. So we seek to remove some of those, again, barriers or remediate some anxieties and stressors. And then what we do is we connect our students with some brilliant employer partners, either through, as Mike pointed out, leveraging alumni and leveraging other, actors that are currently in the stage, so to speak. But we have a lot of career counseling throughout the course of the year to have conversations about, okay, what are you interested in looking to do? Because a significant component of success is happiness. But that's something that folks rarely remember, is they're so focused on, oh, I need to make money and I need to advance quickly and I need to leverage my military experience into something that is so directly connected to it that it's hard to find an infantryman position in the civilian sector out there, or a lot of these other amazing positions that we served in the military and roles in, but there's no direct correlation. So having conversations about what somebody might feel fulfilled in, what they might be excited about, and then we connect them with their internships or with faculty and research opportunities, et cetera. And what this has done, or what we've seen this do, is again, provide a wealth of brilliant opportunities that can be used time and again for students to get additional research, get additional internships, get hired on for positions at really commensurate pay, which is really, really wonderful. But it also helps students to kind of confirm or deny their interest in these areas as they go through them. I had one student, for example, who came to the university very convinced that they were going to do finance and business and economics, and they were quite gifted at it. In fact, they attended, the university, took some economics courses, et cetera, among their general education requirements. They moved on, got an amazing internship with a very, very famous firm for their first year summer, which was great. And then after that, about midway through the year, and upon reflection of it, said, I was very, very good at that internship. I did a great job. They loved me. I was very excited to go back. But I realized I wouldn't be happy doing that. And that in and of itself is a brilliant experience to be able to say that I thought I wanted to do that. I no longer want to do that. I'm going to switch gears entirely. And now they're going into cinema and theater and things of that. And, so they're going to go be an actor. That's fantastic if that's their bliss and what they're looking forward to following, because a long career in finance would have probably killed them slowly on the inside as in contrast. So these kinds of opportunities are really important. And I think it's very valuable to highlight what the value is beyond just going out and doing something for the sake of the resume. It's really not just about the resume. It's about, so many more things. But oftentimes universities haven't sought to remove the barriers that often exist that prevent students from having done those. So that's kind of our focus initially. And we do that, also with other things like study abroad opportunities, to Mike's point, and other sorts of things where we really seek to get removing those barriers that would have prevented them from doing it. The last thing that we do I think that's really unique from a kind of internship or career scale is we take our students, or provide opportunities to take them on what's called summer treks and just career treks throughout the year as well. These are brilliant opportunities where students can go and our student veterans can go fully funded to a whole array of different places to meet with employer partners in those cities. So sometimes it'll be domestic. It'll be either just here in Chicago. We've got a great, set of employers in Chicago, but it might also be other great cities throughout the Midwest, or it might be, New York, LA, what have you. But it's also international. We take treks to Hong Kong and to Beijing and to Berlin and London and any number of other places. You name it, there's probably a career trek there. And it's fully paid for, like flights, hotels, all that kind of thing. And our veterans will go to these and meet with employer partners in them. And it's often done, sometimes during the summer. It's done prior to coursework starting in the fall. It's done in spring break. It's done a bit in winter break, et cetera. And I'll have these students coming back all excited, talking about their recent trip to Portugal and meeting with like 6 different employer partners there, and about the opportunities they didn't know existed, but now do within the, sector of industry that they're interested in. So really exciting opportunities, and they're excited, which is most important. So
yeah. And that student who discovered that finance wasn't for them after an internship, I tell students all the time, if that's the takeaway, it was worth it. Because imagine finding that out, 5-10 years into your career. Now you're like, now what do I do? It's the same thing, campus visits, going and seeing, what was it like to feel like on that campus? Did you have a chance to talk to current students? If you went there and discovered that campus wasn't a good fit for you, that's one of the best takeaways. Imagine if you now went, enrolled, moved in, started classes, and you're like, maybe this isn't the best place. So it all comes back to that intentionality. Mike, what about you all over at Villanova? Can you talk to us a little bit about internships and research at Villanova?
Sure. I think one of the great things that Villanova does is they offer something called the Summer Business Institutes, and it provides you become a full-time student for the entire summer, and it meets all your requirements to get your minor in business. So you may be a nursing student or an engineering student, or a history major, or whatever the case may be, but you may have sort of an itch for business. So what a lot of folks do is take the Summer Business Institute as a full-time student. So instead of taking, like Beau said, just some random classes just to be a student, you can be very intentional with, and it's very, very popular. A huge group of students here to go through the SBI program, get that business minor, and then through the rest of their time at college, they can earn a second minor. So a big majority of our students are double minor students. And we see our business school is, from what I understand, very good, but it's also pretty small and hard to get into. So the Summer Business Institute is just another access point for the business school. And then for internships, that's something that I'm very, very, I preach about it all the time as far as the importance of it, because of 2 things. Like you all talked about, you don't know if you like it or not. So it's a great way to gain that knowledge, but it's also something that's tangible to put on your resume. If you're a former infantryman and just go to college and then want to join the workforce, what is on your resume that speaks to what you're truly looking at entry-level positions at that point? If you've done a couple of resumes where you've gained some experience in computer science or in cybersecurity, you're much more, what your resume says speaks to more about what you really want to do. And I think it's very valuable from that aspect as well. And then what does Villanova offer other than that? We do a lot of mini-mesters. So one of our student veterans, our Student Veteran Club president, just took a mini-mester in DC. He got to see a Supreme Court hearing. He spoke to lobbyists. He spoke to congressional staffers, congressional representatives. He wants to be an elected official at some point. So this is just a great way to spend 2 weeks in DC learning the ropes from that. And then we also have undergrad research opportunities, both within our College of Liberal Arts and our College of Engineering, that many student veterans take advantage of, where you're usually tagged up with a professor who becomes your mentor. And then that person helps you not only do the research, but also get published at the end of it. So they'll give you a couple of opportunities to get published. Again, for that research, that's a way to, whether you want to pursue a higher degree or get a PhD, it's working on that resume to gain access to that, to be a more competitive applicant as you move forward. So, and then lastly, what we do is we do 3 or 4 different things, where it's Villanova on the hill, Villanova in the valley, Villanova at the city, where we take cohorts of students and immerse them into different sectors. So Google's headquarters in California, and they spend a couple weeks really expanding and learning more about that world. They go to New York to learn about the fashion industry. They go to DC to learn more about politics and public policy. So it's really just ways for our students to learn more about either what they want to do or what they don't want to do, as we talked about, because I think they're equally important. But all things considered, Villanova, I think, does a very good job of presenting a good case for the value of either research, taking an internship, and not just working at Starbucks, or not just taking random classes just to do it. It's really being intentional with what you want to do to reach those goals that you set out for yourself.
Absolutely. And then as we start to kind of wrap up the conversation, but also to come full circle, thinking about for our student veterans, right? So they've always been a part of this military community. Now they're transitioning to becoming a part of a college community. But what about beyond that, right? So can you talk to listeners, prospective students, a little bit about what does it mean to be an alumni of an institution and to be, planted within those networking opportunities? How does that community extend beyond the 4 years? Mike, I'll bounce it back to you.
So I'm not a Villanovan. I'm an outsider. But one of the first things that struck me when I got here was the number of alumni, not veteran related necessarily, but just the number of veteran and non-veteran alumni who reached out to me to see how they could assist our students, which was amazing. And so this Veteran Center is named the Brian Prince Family Veterans Resource Center. Brian Prince is not a veteran, and so it's little things like that and big things like that. It's people caring, and I think what it shows is that every college wants to talk about their community. Every university, that's important. I believe that Villanova really does a great job of not only creating it, but enhancing and fostering it as we move forward, so that our students are involved with events that alumni are at, and that creates some of that understanding that, oh yeah, that's me. I'm going to eventually be an alumni. It's like it provides you a sense of the future a little bit. I'm hanging out at this football game tailgate at a Villanova versus whomever game, and I'm here with a bunch of students, but there's also alumni here with me, and we're having fun together. And that's going to be me 5 years from now, or whatever. And so I think that's one sort of example of what it looks like to be an alumni. But other examples are you're providing that you're giving back. So our student veterans are constantly working with alumni for mentorship, for, hey, can you take a look at my resume? What is it like to be in finance working in New York City? And so by having those conversations, it provides the glimpse of what they can do once they can become alumni. And I think it's really providing a broader sense of belonging to the Villanova community, whether you're a student or not, is something that I think Villanova as a whole does a very good job with.
Yeah, it's seeing someone who's done kind of what you want to do, right? And that's essentially what we mirror here at Service to School through the ambassadors. Our ambassadors are students that are studying at some of your institutions, some other top institutions across the country. So when applicants can see someone who, was in their position before and is now where they hope to be, it just gives them that little bit of confidence, right? I think it's the same way for, most of us and any other aspects of our lives. When you see that someone who looks like you or who identifies as you can also achieve big things and be successful, it makes it a little bit less daunting. So I think, hopping into that alumni community is important.
Yeah, it's just looking at, how you fit in. What does that look like? What does it feel like? And can I do that? And I think it's providing that confidence like you talked about, but also the possibility for it. And so yes, I agree.
Absolutely. But what about you? I know you have thoughts on this.
Yeah, I have thoughts on everything. I think that there are really two things I think that are worth touching on. The first is that when it comes to the alumni community and the goal and desire to be part of an alumni community, I often compare it to the same experience that you have running into somebody that you went through the same deployment with, or that you, not to say that college is a deployment, but maybe for some people it feels that way sometimes during finals or what have you. But you've had a shared experience, and that's going to bind you together in a sense of fraternity or a sense of fellowship, friendship, family, what have you. You're part of something bigger than yourself, which is what so many of us loved about the military too. And so when you run into somebody who you haven't seen from a long time, even though if you weren't that close to them, if you think to it, but you were on a deployment together or you were in the same unit serving together, there's this amazing feeling that comes over you where you're really excited to connect with them. And that occurred when you were still in the military and whatever the case. And it wasn't just with your best friends, it was just random people that you knew were in that unit, but maybe they were 2 companies over or something to that effect. And again, you run into them a future date and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so great to see you. So feeling part of something is an important component of like the alumni community and the student community. I think another component can be a little bit selfish in a good way too, though, which is taking advantage of and leveraging these connections for your own success and the success of your friends, your business, whatever the case would be too. Our alumni are in some of the best places and most well-placed positions across the country in every industry. And so having folks that you can reach out to seek mentorship from directly, or that you can reach out to ask for an introduction. I mean, maybe you're really interested in, company X, and you look through UChicago's records of alumni and you see that Brian Smith is well placed at that company X position. You can reach out to them and ask them to grab coffee or ask them to just connect quickly over a Zoom meeting and ask them your questions about that company. Ask them for introductions. I mean, whatever the case may be, but you can leverage that shared experience, even if there's 20 years between you and whoever and that Brian Smith character in terms of when you were engaged in the university community. It's something that transcends time. It's and you can leverage that. And there are really good resources available to help you see who these people are and where they're well placed, and if they're excited to engage with you as a student, or if it's something that they're excited to engage with other alumni, et cetera. So there are really some opportunities for, I think, everyone to take advantage of. And then hopefully, you can be selfish in that, because you can be selfless later on when you're well placed, and you can pay it forward and offer yourself as a connecting agent and as a catalyst for other alumni who are coming behind you and excited for the opportunity to connect with them, that company, or with other industries similar to that. So there's really just, again, kind of a larger family opportunity, if you will, a familial opportunity here that people can take advantage of.
Absolutely. And I think back even, my undergraduate, whenever I hear country roads or someone says, let's go, even if it's at an airport, and there's always the Mountaineers across the way. Or I know for Amanda, our podcast producer, the OH, I'm sure, it's kind of that feeling like you belong to something that transcends just your, local community or your friend group on campus. And it's just so nice to know that, okay, well, I can go search LinkedIn for people who graduated with me from GW, and, I can reach out to them and connect with them. And even if they have no idea who I am, it just gives us that, shared mutual understanding of, well, at least worst case scenario, if we have nothing else to talk about, we can talk about how much our study spot was the seventh floor of the library. And, I always sat the third table back. It's just, everyone likes that nostalgia and to be able to, reflect back on their college experiences, which comes back to, talking to applicants and saying, have that college experience, right? You might feel like it's for the 18-year-olds or the first year students, but there's so much added value to truly getting the most out of your 4 years, 5 years, whatever, your time on campus looks like, to be able to walk away and know that, that there's someone down the road or, a city over that you can just pick up the phone and say, hey, can I just, informational interview, or do you know anyone who works in that field? So I love that we've been able to talk kind of the 360 of supporting the student veteran. But is there anything that either one of you feel is just, if every campus could do this one thing to better support the student veteran, or what do you think our gaps are in this space as far as supporting the student veteran? Beau, I'll start with you.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. That's a whole other podcast for what are the gaps, what are the problems in higher education when it comes to veterans and veteran services.
That's just one podcast, or you think there's multiple episodes?
Maybe it's a series, and I'm happy to be on as many of them as you want me back for. I think it's so multifaceted, but I think if I was to nail it down to one particular issue and then a quick solution, I would say that the issue tends to be that veteran services within universities is relegated to the past. It's looking to the past of what was provided. It's essentially, let's certify your benefits, provide free cured coffee, free printing, and nothing else. And we've done our part. We have a Memorial Day service. We have a Veterans Day service. We're patting ourselves on the back. Congratulations. We all feel good, moving on. But that's kind of the equivalent of being thanked for your service in the airport. It's a meaningful gesture, but it doesn't have any impact past that. It's hollow beyond that. And it's somewhat self-serving sometimes. Even with the best of intentions, it really doesn't get at anything fundamentally. It doesn't provide anything life-changing for any service members or veterans who are walking away from that interaction. And so I think that the key to fix that within universities is to think more strategically, and to apply tactical to apply a bit of a tactical approach to fixing any of those problems, and being very intentional, since that's the key word of today, it seems like, but being very intentional, focusing on the impact, being mission focused. All these things that we tried to do when we were in the military, leverage those same things that we should know how to do in the civilian world in terms of a mission focus and outcomes approach and things of that nature too. But rather than being risk averse, I think it's important to mitigate risk, identify risk and then mitigate it. And that can be in terms of the different anxieties and stressors and things that a student would normally go through, especially a non-traditional student, and then applying those resources in an impactful way so that they're actually able to take the most out of that experience. And then having access to different parts in the university so that it isn't just an initiative of one little office somewhere, but it's something that can be seen throughout the university experience, such as in admissions, academic advising, housing, et cetera. If we look at it in that way, we essentially are hitting the entire life cycle of a student and providing resources and support throughout the entire experience that, again, remove barriers, remove anxieties and stressors so that that student veteran is able to be a fully engaged part of the campus community and be a student just like everyone else.
Yeah. Well, let's have a follow-up episode about more of your answer there, Beau. But Mike, what would you say is your lasting thought?
I think where I see the gaps, I was at a community college before Villanova, and now being here at Villanova is a lot of times in higher education in general, we are very transactional in nature. And I believe that is a big fallacy that we have, is that we need to be relationship and outcome based, not numbers based. because when we are when we are relationship and outcome based, I think it leads to success in the classroom, success and immersion on campus, but then a more active and responsive alumni base as well. When you create an awesome college experience, it usually leads to an alumni who's going to come back and be a part of events and mentor students and do all of those things. That's what we all want. But when we're just your student ID 012487, here's your diploma, have a nice day, that person's just going to move on with life and do whatever they do and be much more likely to not be nostalgic about their college experience like we all want. The other thing I think is that institutions think that just having someone certify benefits is military friendly. And like I said, anyone can build a box and anyone can stamp benefits. What I think we ought to be doing is constantly learning and growing on how we best serve our students, whether they're the 18-year-old coming out of high school or the 28-year-old coming out of the Marine Corps. And that may be some differences, but there are also a lot of similarities. They want to get an A on that midterm, just like everyone else, whether they're that 18-year-old or the 27-year-old. And I think, how do we get to those? Maybe, again, there may be different pathways, but the end goals are usually very, very similar. They want to be successful on campus and they want to be successful in their careers. And so we ought to, as institutions, find those best pathways for students. So again, it's taking an individualized approach. It's being relationship and outcome focused. And I believe if we do that with our students, we will be successful at serving our student veterans and military affiliated students across campus.
Yeah. And the relationship is so important. And I just think both of you, whenever I send those intro emails with some of our prospective applicants working with Service to School, when I send an intro email to both of you, I know for a fact you're going to respond quickly to the students. You're going to, give them information, but then you're also going to say, let's take it a step forward. Let's get a call. Let's start the conversation, right? It's that conversation piece and taking away some of the same fears or concerns around like, oh, well, I'm talking to so-and-so, they have this title at this institution and am I worthy of having this conversation, right? Like it's that imposter syndrome that we're trying to break down, that encouraging student veterans that they belong on your campuses and that they can be successful, welcomed, valued parts of the student body there. And I think the work that you both are doing and the buzzword, how intentional you're being and building those relationships and fostering that space for student veterans to be successful on your campuses. I think if that was the standard, across the board, I think, access to education for student veterans wouldn't be, as kind of this big barrier, that whose job is it to, break down. When the short answer is it's all of our jobs, right? It's not just Mike's job in the Veteran Center. It's not just Beau's job in the admissions office, or it's not just the school certifying official, right? That we all have skin in this game, be it Service to School trying to, bring those applicants to you all and helping them understand their opportunities, but also the support that they receive on campus and then beyond. So thank you both. Any last parting words for our listeners about either applying to colleges or researching colleges? Mike?
I would say, put yourself out there, apply to your dream school, some backup schools, and maybe, a few schools somewhere in between, because really the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to have some options to take and pick from that are going to lead you hopefully to, where you want to be. And I know from my own experience, imposter syndrome and feeling like the old man on campus or whatever that is real. And so the only way to break those things down is to speak to others who've gone before you and have felt that and done that. So I would encourage people to have those conversations with folks like Beau, myself, and others around the country who have been doing this for a while, but also can break down some of those perception barriers.
Absolutely. Beau, what are your last words?
I
That sounded
would
like such a demise. Like, what are
my
your
last words, I know, right? Well, my last words for this are don't put limitations on yourself. There are so many opportunities that are out there that just start with a conversation. And there's no bad things that can come from a conversation, quite frankly. So have a conversation with a ton of different schools and institutions, shoot as high as you want to go, and talk about the resources, talk about the availability. Our role at these schools is to help you get in. It's not to keep you out. So we want to have conversations that can lead towards your success and your enrollment at one of these schools, whichever might be the best fit. And we can have conversations about that and connect you with other resources, et cetera. And I think it's important to do that sooner rather than later. So don't wait till right before you're getting out. I mean, if you're in that space, fine, but then reach out today. If, on the other hand, you are 2 years from getting out, that's a great time to have the conversation, quite frankly, because you are starting to think whether or not you're going to stay in or get out. You're assessing opportunities and options. And then you can leverage that to visit with us a little bit about the things that you could do to make yourself the most competitive person ever. We have several students at, I'm sure, Villanova, at UChicago, a ton of different schools, some of the best schools in the country. We have some student veterans who got through high school on prayer alone. So you are not the only one. There are others who did not do so well and thought perhaps that would have limited the potential that they could have saw themselves in terms of universities, but they connected with us, had conversations, and then saw out other things that they could do to make themselves stronger candidates throughout the process. It sometimes takes time, but if you're willing to work for it, it's worth the reward, you know? So don't put limitations on yourself. You really do belong on these campuses, to Sydney's point. And higher education universities are not the end state. They're kind of a waypoint or part of the journey. So see them exactly as just as part of that, and having the conversations about careers and longer term goals with us as well, because we're happy to have those conversations as part of the, initial relationship building too. So certainly wish you all the very best and hope that you'll take advantage of these resources.
Well, both of you, thank you so much for just letting me pick your brains about the support and ways that we can better support, truthfully, our student veterans across the board. But again, thank you for being Service to School VetLink partners. I know I always look forward to when I get to collaborate and chat with you all. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we'll continue the conversation in season 2, Beau.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
All right.
Thanks
Take
for the
care.
opportunity. I appreciate it and look forward to future conversations.
Wonderful. Take care, y'all. That's it for this episode. Join us next week, same time, same place, where we share more Service to School stories. Service to School Stories is hosted by Sydney Mathis, the Director of Student Success, and produced by Amanda Tobias, the Director of Communication at Service to School. Service to School is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free college admission support to transitioning service members and veterans. Join us next time and follow us for more on all of your favorite social media platforms.